Hey everyone, Captain Amazing here, and today I'm going to go over every single GL and what's the best mods for them and just some good benchmarks to aim for. So let's jump into it. So full disclosure, this isn't my account. This is just one of my viewers. He has a very good account, very good mods, so I thought it was a good benchmark to talk over it. He does have a lot of Relic 9s and Relic 8s. You don't have to specifically Relic 9 or Relic 8 them. I will say some ones, I will have some of the GLs that are quite notable. But with that being said, Relic 7 is fine for most of these. It's a good benchmark. It's a good place to stop any major or big characters because and just start working towards your next farm so that you're not using excess relic levels. Some people like to take them to Relic 8 and keep them there. A lot of my GLs are Relic 7 and they work just fine as long as you mod them correctly. There are some notable exceptions, but we'll go over that later. All right, so let's start first with Rey. So Rey wants an offense and a health set. I have seen some people go full health with her and keep her really slow. I particularly don't like that. I think the most holds you're going to get with Rey is if she has like a crazy amount of offense and she just starts, yeeting people out of there. Speed for her isn't too crazy. The good benchmark to aim for is 200k health. Whatever speed you can get on her, like you don't have to aim for the 530s. But just the only notable exception is if you're doing the actual ultimate event, you want her above 501 speed. But other than that, like her speed is really negligible. She is a GL. She does want to take turns, so you do want her to have okay speed, like decent speed, and as much damage as you can. I would say bare minimum 10k damage, ideal 11k damage or more. But you do want like as much damage as you can get. If you can get her nice and juicy with that damage, that's when she really is a threat and she'll just start eating people out. If you have to sacrifice a little on the health, that's fine. Like if you have 180k health and like 12k damage or something, I wouldn't hate that. It's just a way to do it. So there's a few ways you can do that. This is the ideal way. Like this is perfect Rey mods, where you have a health primary, good decent speed, and high offense secondary. That's how you get these high health, high damage, super juicy, yeeting everyone out Reys. It's the ideal way to mod her, but usually it's not that easy. So if you have some like offense primaries with some health as well, that's fine. And then bonus points if you can get some flat offense. But ideally for Rey, and it's really hard to get this, if you can go health primary, 5 hits on speed, 5 hits on offense percent like this is obviously like the ideal perfect god mod on Rey. Is it, of course, do you want some more speed? Yeah, sure. Would you love a little more offense? Yeah, these aren't perfect rolls, but this is ideal, like 5 hits on offense percent, 5 hits on speed, health primary. But that's like, unicorn mods. It's really hard to get. So a good way to do it too is just like offense primary. So you can get that 8.5% decent speed, okay health, and just have a mixture of those, like 2 offense primaries, 2 health primaries. That's fine. But to really juice up Rey, you're gonna have to hit those offense secondary stats where you can with the health primary, and then yeah, see like this, all these mods, they have high either offense primary or they have over 5-6% offense on the secondary. And again, these are like god mods. This is a perfectly modded Rey, so this is just the benchmark of what you're working for. This is the ideal way to do it. But you just gotta have to do the best with what you have. But ideally, this is how you do it. What you don't want is you don't want like crit damage here. She most of her damage, the only place she can crit is on her basic. These whirlwinds just do massive damage, and then her ult does true damage. So you want just offense on her and health and some speed. So that's how you mod Rey. Next, let's go over SLKR, and I'm going to do SLKR then JMK because my ideal mods for SLKR and JMK are exactly the same, believe it or not. So I like to mod them identical. So you do want health. This has a lot of health on SLKR. This is a ton of speed. This is probably one of the fastest SLKRs I've ever seen. You don't need this much health. You don't need this much speed. And his damage is like, okay. It's not bad actually. I do same benchmarks as before. I would say like 130k health, 120 is probably fine. 580 speed. Crit damage triangle is very important. That's like very key here. And then over 10k damage. And again, if you can hit like 11, 12, 13k, you can't hit into the 14s unless you have like an offense set. But you know, as much damage as you can get on him, because the damage will ramp. I have seen some people go full health with SLKR, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't like that. I like him flexible. I do use him for, you know, like galactic challenges and a bunch of other things because his kit is actually pretty universal. You can shove because just like Rey, his kit just needs dark side. So, you know, believe it or not, he's a very universal character if you know how to use him. I still use him in Conquest, less, especially more now that we don't have like as much turn meter mechanics and you don't really need him as much. So like I'm not cannibalizing his team anymore as much as in the past conquests, but he's a very good character. But essentially you want a health circle with as much speed as you can. Ideally offense percent here. Flat offense is okay, but with GLs are really stat hungry. This specific mod I probably wouldn't have taken all the way to 6A. Maybe he was chasing that speed and that's why he got the 28. But flat offense is all right. But like with GLs and how high their offense percent is, like if this was offense percent, it would be higher. I personally, believe it or not, do have a health primary here with high offense secondary, because again, like you can go offense primary here with high speed. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then if you have like defense or health percent, that's fine too. I do understand this 16, like I do have I have high defense secondaries on my SLKR too. Believe it or not, it's just something that my mods ended up having. So I'm similar to this player, but I do have like health primary here, high offense or high speed and high offense percent because I just rolled that god-like mod. But if you don't have that, the easiest way, like I said, is to have a cross with an offense percent here and then speed, and then if you can get some defense or health here, that's fine. Crit damage is very important. All his damage is crit. This guy, you don't need crit chance. You don't need a crit chance set. If you look here at his crit chance, it's like he only has an extra 6% probably through random secondaries, and it's already at 130%. So it sits somewhere around 125%. I'm a little over that. So you don't need and he has advantage too all the time. So you don't need crit chance. Like you don't need it at all. Like don't put a crit chance primary here. Don't try to chase crit chance. He also doesn't need potency, and his protection is really low. So don't worry about protection. Don't worry about tenacity. Don't worry about potency. All his abilities can't be resisted. So his stasis, furious onslaught, the siphoning mechanics can't be resisted. His poke can't be resisted. His basic doesn't really have anything that's like super important for him to to land. Like it does inflict buff immunity, but it's not the biggest difference in the world if it lands or not. It's not even something I think about. And then his potency is kind of naturally really high anyways, so you know sometimes it'll land, but it's even I would even venture to say most people don't even know that it inflicts buff immunity. So if you would ask someone like, hey, what status effect does brutal assault or SLKR's basic do, they probably wouldn't even know, because it's really negligible. It really doesn't matter. So he doesn't need more potency. And then he does like speed. So there's different ways you can mod him. You can go all health, you can go all offense set, or you can go speed and health. I have a speed and defense set just because a defense set does give more survivability. A lot of people go with health sets overall just because we get so many free health sets and people don't farm defense sets. But overall, like like defense sets are probably the best way. But it's up to you. It's totally fine. Like again, this is modded perfectly. Ideally, I would say you would want more damage on SLKR, and maybe a little less health. So if this was my SLKR, I probably would change this cross to an offense primary with just some decent like speed and health percent here or something. But you know, to each their own. This is still a well modded SLKR. It has tons of health, has crit damage, excellent speed, and again, the speed that you're aiming for is probably around 580. It's important for him, especially in like if you use him against Leia or something, to go out, get that stasis strike, and then like start doing his thing. For Jabba too, you want him to go before Jabba. It's not that hard to get him faster than Jabba, but it's a good counter. All right, so same thing with JMK. So I like to mod JMK the same way. Health, as much speed as you can get, crit damage triangle, and as much damage as you can get. So that looks as a health circle here, offense primary here, crit damage triangle, and then a speed arrow. And then for these, you just try to, like, you know, whatever those three stats, health, speed, and offense that you can get here is fine. And these GLs are just like so stat hungry as well. And a lot of people will say, like, it doesn't matter how you mod JMK. JMK is gonna like work beautifully. Some people just have like all health here for survivability. I personally think he's very survivable. He doesn't need it. And then he does ramp with Cat, so you do want him to be able to do good damage with Cat because they're ramping and everything. So it is, I do think that's important, and I would mod him very similarly to SLKR, where you want excellent speed because he wants to take his turns, and then you want crit damage and offense cross with a health circle just to keep him alive. All right, so next we have, let's go with JML. So a lot of people think like modding JML is pretty easy, and they're like, protection, go all protection, all in on protection. And you know what, like I agree with you, like protection is very important, but you do want to hit some other benchmarks too. So you want speed and you do want potency, right? So I do like a potency set, and the big thing too is you can't ignore the square and the diamond here. And so for the square and the diamond, I would say aim for at least 10% protection and decent speed. If you can get some potency on there as well, then that's like an ideal mod. So like a lot of above 20 speed, above 10% protection, and then some potency would be the best way for JML. And then everywhere else, protection. You can go speed arrow here if you don't have a good protection primary. Like obviously this isn't the ideal mod for JML because this would have like potency and flat protection or something here, but this is fine. Like if you have a protection primary with over 25 speed, that's pretty ideal for what you're looking for. If you don't have a protection primary with at least 25 speed, then it's totally fine. Just go with the speed arrow and then aim for at least 10% protection here. And as long as you have the 10% protection here and 10% protection here, you're gonna hit over 150k protection. And then that way, every time you use his I think it's inherited teachings. Yeah, every time you use your inherited teachings, it does 60%, so it hits for 90k damage. And I will say that for JML, it's important to get him, and let's hide my face here, to get him Relic 9. Like Relic 9 on this character, I would say is probably the most important Relic 9 out of all the GLs. The rest you could probably go R7 and they'll do everything you need for them. The more relics you give them, of course, like the less damage they take through their Galactic Legend unique, and they also just are a lot more survivability. They have better stats because they're stat hungry. So overall, yeah, it's a good thing to do. But for JML, when you R9 him, the amount of protection he gains is insane. And usually it equates to about a 30% increase in his protection, which means you're increasing the offensive power of the entire team by 30%, because everyone can use that inherited teachings as long as they're Jedi, and you're just like 90k, 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 90k. Even more if you can get up to like 166 plus or 165k plus if you have all protection primaries and decent protection on the square and diamond. So obviously, like, this is ideal stats. So that's a lot of damage, and if you want, and it also makes him super survivable because he has that much more protection, which allows him to keep his taunt longer, which allows him to keep his teammates alive more because he's taunting, and then it makes the counters just a lot more reliable, especially for, you know, like JMKs or the Lord Vaders, because a lot of people will say like, oh, JML's trash, JML's garbage. JML, you know, I just use him to kill Qui-Gon teams solo or something. But if he's not R9, he doesn't have good speed, he doesn't have good potency, then he probably failed you a few times because it was unreliable. Or people will say like, oh, my R7 JML does what I need. I use him to counter like SLKR, and that's fair. Yeah, of course he like hard counters SLKR, but how many times do you see SLKR on defense? Like, not very. So you could take this you know, you're turning like an S tier GL on offense into like an A minus or, you know, a B plus or something by not modding him correctly, not getting him to R9. Like, don't put this guy on defense. Like, he's not a very good defense. Like, he gets beat by Gear 12 Treyas with Omicrons. He gets beat by Inquisitors. He gets beat by a whole lot. He's just not a good defensive GL. So take him on offense and then beat really strong things. You can beat JMKs, you can beat Lord Vaders. But to make those counters reliable too, you need this potency. So this right here, like, if you read his abilities, they do some pretty good things. So if inflicting ability block, breach, excellent. And then this one, it increases cooldowns. So it does inflict tenacity down, but daze, and increases their cooldowns by 1. So you do want to be able to, like, ability block, you want to be able to daze, you want to be able to push their cooldowns up. So it's important for JML to have that potency, the buff immunity, all these things like that. Like, the point of how these counters work is you're keeping the other GL controlled through JML as you systematically take out their team and then you kill the GL, whatever it is. So that's how the Lord Vader counter works. That's how the JMK counter works. There's a lot of different ways, but for those counters to work as well, you need speed. So you need a lot of speed. So that's how you want to mod your JML. You can go speed set with health set. You can go speed set with potency set. Please don't go like all health. Like, he does need, like, health is pretty negligible for him. It's not a big deal. But he does want a ton of speed above 550. He wants potency, and he wants as much, he wants all the protection. So good GL as long as you take him on offense and you treat him right. All right, so C. Sith Eternal Emperor. Sith Eternal Emperor, you want... I've seen some crazy modded Cs out there with like crit damage triangles and offense and speed arrows and all protection. Whack, all whack. There's only one way to mod C. You want above 200k health, so all health primaries. You want health secondaries here in the diamond and the square, and then you want as much speed as you can on them. At least 20 plus speed on these mods. So health primary speed, health primary speed, health primary speed, health primary speed, speed with some health secondary. speed with some health secondary. So that's how you, that's the only way to mod Sith Eternal Emperor. There's only one way. That's the only way to do it. All health primaries, all like as much speed as you can get, and that's how you make him survivable. The only thing that's important for him. So that's the only way. Don't mod him any other way than that. All right. So Leia. So Leia, she does have this Rebel Ambush, and this Rebel Ambush does deal physical damage plus bonus true damage equal to 10% of Leia's max health. So you do want her to have tons of health. You want her to be survivable as well. She is a tank. A lot of times she's hard focused by players because if you attack her teammates, then she gets turn meter, and then, you know, like bad things happen after she uses her ult. So that's not ideal. So you want her as survivable as possible, and you want her to have health, and more health because she does true damage with it. So here she also wants speed. So she wants a speed set and all health primaries is how you want to mod her. So health here, health here, health here. And then I've seen health with speed secondaries, and then I've seen speed arrow with health secondaries. Of course, this is ideal, health primary with speed secondaries. Again, you're aiming for the 25 plus speed mods with health primary here, just to get her as much juicy health as possible, and then as fast as you can get her. So 196 is really fast, is a great character. So yeah, so and ideally you do want health secondaries here as well, but the best you can. So that's the way you mod Leia. And then Lord Vader. So Lord Vader, there's a certain ways you can mod him. This guy went full protection. So you want, of course, speed. So this guy has some great mods. So he went protection primary here. You can go protection primary here. Again, I would say just like 20 plus speed is fine on him. You can go protection here. I would say for the triangle, like protection primary here, protection primary here, protection primary here. But I would say for this triangle, it would be, I would prefer a crit damage. Like, yeah, you want him to be as survivable as possible. Like you ramp up his protection. That protection, when he gets converted into health, and he has this massive health pool. But like, the point of the way Lord Vader works, right, is he takes the his mastery from his teammates, and then like the more relics you have on everyone, the more he ramps up his mastery, and then once he like ults 2 times or more, then his damage just like shoots through the roof. So you just want him to be survivable. But I would say if you have that crit damage triangle here, that makes him his damage so much higher. So I think if you have all protection primaries, like if he had like 200k protection here, that would be perfectly fine. And then that crit damage triangle with good speed, and then that, for me, that's the ideal way to mod him. You can go protection here if you want to, and just have him as survivable, and he's gonna ramp and he's gonna do good damage. But ideally, if you have that crit damage triangle, then that threshold for him to ramp, for him to just start deleting people, ends up being a lot less. So maybe he just like has to ult 1 time, and then he can start killing people instead of having to wait for him to ult twice for him to ramp enough without that triangle. So that's my recommendation, like all protection primaries except for the triangle, which is crit damage. You can go all protection if you want to. Really, you can go like speed here with protection secondaries. I still think protection primary here is worth it, and then just have a crit damage here with as much speed as you can, and protection secondaries, and then from there all protection primaries, ideally. And then like he just ramps so beautifully, and then he does his job. So it's up to you. You mod him whatever way you want. A lot of people, I will say this about Lord Vader. If you, let me hide my face. So if you look here, like he's Relic 9, and he has like great stats, right? So a lot of times people keep Lord Vader at like Relic 7, and they're like, he's Lord Failure. He doesn't do anything for me. He never holds, and whenever I take him on offense, he just like fails. And I'll say this, like he does want relics. So if you can get him like Relic 8, then he starts becoming more of a threat. And the same thing, like his team is just like high relics. So if you have like a Relic 3 Royal Guard or something, and like a Relic 5 Maul and a Relic 6, you know, like Thrawn or something, like, yeah, of course, like the team's not going to hold that well. You do, like, this is the most expensive GL, and if you have the ability, I would say like throw a little more relics on him, at least Relic 8 on Lord Vader and all Relic 7 on his team minimum, like minimum, for him to like be effective. But you know, the more relics that you put on him and his team, the faster he ramps, the more damage, and then the more effective. Like, this is an excellent GL, as long as you treat him right. If you don't treat him right, he's not going to treat you right, and then you're not going to get much out of him. So do yourself a favor. Like, if you put all that effort into getting him, then put the effort into making his team worth it. And that's why he's usually the last GL people farm, or the first, but he needs to be invested in heavily. All right, so Jabba. Jabba, you want health, speed, and tenacity. I see a lot of people ignore tenacity, and I think that's a mistake. A lot of his counters rely on debuffs, especially if they go for like Night Sisters and then Mon Mothma cleanup or something. You want to have him resist as many of those debuffs as possible, and then have that super high tenacity will just play out better, because a lot of times you can't like target him first, and they just try to like put a bunch of debuffs on him or something. Like, you want him tenacious, you want him to be able to resist all that and then to survive. So but he needs health too, like that's his greatest survivability pool. So health, he needs speed. He's not like the fastest GL, but he doesn't do much damage himself, so you don't need like offensive or like crit chance or crit damage or any of those, or even potency. What you just need is health, speed, and then as much tenacity as possible. You can go tenacity here or health. I personally went tenacity, so I have a tenacity primary, and then on the cross, and then I have health, and then speed here is how I did it. So I would recommend something like that. And then on the diamond and the square, just try to get as much health, speed, and tenacity as possible, whatever mods you have that fits the bill. At least minimum health and speed, or even if you go like tenacity and speed or something, but speed has to be the more important stat out of these, other than having the right primaries, of course, in the sets. You can go a health set or a tenacity set. I would honestly recommend speed and health is good. I wouldn't recommend going like all health or all tenacity, or a mix of tenacity and health. He does need speed, so like speed and health is perfectly fine, and then just having tenacity secondaries and then a tenacity primary across here is probably ideal for Jabba, is how I would recommend you modding him. All right, and that's it. That's all the GLs. That's how you mod them all. I would say for relic levels, across the board, Relic 7 minimum. Leia does like Relic 9 because she's a tank and she gets a lot of stats from that. JML, I would say, is borderline the only GL that needs Relic 9. I would say Lord Vader needs at least Relic 8 minimum, and then the rest like Jabba, Rey, SLKR, JMK, especially JMK. I would say JMK needs Relic 8 and 9 the least. Like his mechanics and team are just so strong that if you have like a full Relic 7 JMK team, like he's going to perform exactly the way you need him. Relic 8 still like more offense, like good stats, like yeah, that's great. And all of these would love more relics, to be completely honest. If you like Relic 9'd all your GLs, like there's no love lost there, and then people will just say like good on you on having the bandwidth on being able to do it. So the more relics you can throw on these characters, the better. Especially things like Rey and SLKR, they really start to shine in being able to like resist those counters that usually like hard counter them, or just make their the counters that they go for a lot more reliable. And then same thing for C. Like Relic 9 isn't huge, or even Relic 8. He just needs health. Like, just give him as much health as you can and speed, and he'll be like, it's the mechanics of the team that makes him do, like, if you have like Brute Alpha, Watt, and then the armor or something, and then that's gonna get you what you need out of them to do whatever you need to do, or just like Watt and armor, just Watt and C, or whatever you're trying to do. But like the mechanics themselves are gonna do what you need C to do. But like that, essentially, the more relics on C is not that important, in my opinion. And same thing as Jabba. Like, you want like Jabba 8, probably sooner or later you're gonna want him and his team to R9 for ROTE, and same thing like R9s and R8s for all these for ROTE. Once you're like end game, then yeah, go for it. But other than that, you don't need to invest heavily. And I would say if you have like 2 or 3 GLs and you're like, well, I'm going to take them all to R8 or all 9, R9, that's a waste. So like JML, yes. Lord Vader, R8, yes. The rest, R7 is perfectly fine. And then once you have like all the GLs and Jedi Cal Kestis and, you know, Third Sister and the Ufus, and in your like end game like this player, then yeah, you can start increasing those relics. But as you're like, I would rather you save those relic materials, R7 your whole team except for like JML and Lord Vader, and save that material for the next farm. And then once you've caught up, then you can start relicking more, and then it'll pay off more in the long run. So I would say if you like these kinds of guides, if you like this, if you like just my general vibe, go ahead, like, subscribe, drop a comment, tell me if you mod your GLs differently or if you disagree with any of my modding recommendations. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, and take care.